And good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's The Spirit of Liberty. In 1944, a federal judge and judicial philosopher, Judge Learned Hand, delivered a speech in Central Park to over 1 million people on I Am an American Day. His remarks spoke directly to the 150,000 people in the audience who had just been sworn in as naturalized United States citizens. He said, "We've gathered here to affirm a faith in a common purpose, a common conviction, a common devotion. Some of us have chosen America as the land of our adoption. The rest of us have come from those who did the same. What was the object that nerved us, or those who went before us, to this choice? We sought liberty, freedom from oppression, freedom from want, freedom to be ourselves." Behind me, just across Columbus Circle, is Central Park. 73 years later, we're here to affirm that common faith that Learned Hand proclaimed. Today, we'll begin a conversation about how to strengthen our democracy at home and help foster a new consensus that spreads freedom abroad. Over the past century, the world has witnessed the transformative power of freedom around the world. In 1900, there were no true democracies. My mother was born before women had the right to vote, and only until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were restrictions on voting by African Americans finally lifted. Conditions began to change in what has been described as waves of transformation. By the end of the 20th century, from Western Europe to Latin America to Asia and Africa, societies that had been ruled by military governments or dictators were choosing democracy, and communism collapsed almost completely. Millions of people around the world no longer think of themselves as subjects, but rather as citizens with rights, and that's a major accomplishment. This progress is a testament to the human spirit, to the sacrifices made by brave men and women who fight for freedom, and to those courageous individuals who continue this fight for freedom today. George and I believe that freedom is the universal desire of all people. During our time in the White House and now at the Bush Institute, we've met with dozens of dissidents and democracy advocates from every part of the world. Despite their differences of history, culture, language, or religion, one thing is constant: a fundamental belief in the dignity of all human beings and their right to be free. These conversations have reminded me of the fragility of freedom, particularly in places where it's newly won. Last year, Freedom House noted the 11th year of decline of freedom around the world. This is due to the use of more forceful tactics by authoritarian regimes and to a rise in global terrorism. We've seen populist and nationalist forces gain strength in democratic states. Even in the United States, which remains a beacon of freedom to others, Freedom House has raised concerns about signs of erosion that need attention. Research shows that less than 1/3 of American students in grades 4, 8, and 12 are proficient in civics. The knowledge of the American constitutional system and the role of government and civil society in the lives of free people. This trend is even more concerning when you consider more than 1/3 of respondents in a recent Annenberg study could not name a single right protected by the First Amendment. More than 30% of people surveyed couldn't name a single branch of government. We must prepare our children and grandchildren with the tools they need to be informed, engaged citizens who care about individual liberty and democracy. We must teach them history. We must insist they understand the government they're blessed to live under. We must teach our children how to listen, to show empathy, to show civility in the face of disagreement, and to overcome malice and hate. And we must model that behavior ourselves. This is the task of parents, teachers, and anyone who touches the lives of young people today. And it's our patriotic duty as Americans. This situation didn't develop overnight. We've been neglecting to tell our nation's story for years. It will take time and effort to repair. 2 years ago, the Bush Institute released Freedom Matters, a supplemental curriculum for high schoolers. Our goal with Freedom Matters is simple: to foster the next generation of Americans, perhaps even a future president of the United States, to care about democracy and individual liberty at home and abroad. Freedom Matters is available online for anyone to download free of charge. The 16 lessons in Freedom Matters combine the personal stories of dissidents and democracy advocates featured in the Bush Institute's Freedom Collection with broader universal concepts of freedom, rule of law, limited representative government, and the protection of basic human rights. This is just one of the ways the Bush Institute is committed to developing a consensus about the value of freedom. We're grateful to work with partners on a new initiative. I'm thrilled to announce that in collaboration with Freedom House and the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, we're launching a major public opinion research study, a poll that will help us learn how Americans feel about their democracy and what Americans believe their role is in spreading liberty abroad. The results of the poll will serve as a resource for others who share our commitment to democracy and freedom. Grace Joe is a fine example of someone who's committed to spreading liberty worldwide. Grace came to the United States as a refugee from North Korea, and she knows what life is like when freedom is absent. As an inaugural recipient of the Bush Institute's North Korea Freedom Scholarship, Grace wants to help other North Koreans trapped beyond Pyongyang's Iron Curtain. George and I are honored that she's here today to share her story. Please join me in welcoming Grace Joe.
My name is Grace Joe, and I am an American. Thank you. It is my privilege to be an American. When freedom is absent in my life, it was dark, sad, desperate, and I was fearful. My grandmother, when she raised me until I was 7 years old, and she passed away because she starved and she didn't have any food to eat. Her last words was to ask us to leave the village and survive. Also, her last wish was to eat a baked potato. I was so little, I was not able to provide what she wished for. But grace of God, I survived. I came to America, and I found freedom. My father, who was a hero to me, he tried his best to find a way to help us to live in North Korea. However, the regime ruthlessly killed my father. Only his crime was to cross the border between China and North Korea, and his only crime was to bring a bag of rice for his dying children. He was handcuffed on a train. He was not able to sit or stand completely. He starved for many days and severely tortured. My youngest brother, Gukbum, he died because of starvation. We didn't have enough corn skin powder to make his porridge. He decided to leave us first, maybe because he realized that the regime, the country, is not worth for him to leave. When I grew up in China, I was able to eat white rice and pork, and sometimes I can eat meat. The life in China was difficult, but it was way better than life in North Korea. However, I had to hide and run to place every time in China. However, we try very hard, and how much we careful we are in China, we still got caught many times by Chinese police and forcefully sent back to North Korea. Each time we sent back to North Korea, I had unforgettable memories that keep reminds me that freedom is a treasure. I now know the blessings of liberty in the United States. I am a happy college student, which is almost the dream life. I always dreamed to go to university and study all I wanted. Now I became a college student, and I'm very honored and very happy to share this news. I also work at a private dental office and support my family. Also, I travel place to raise my voice for my people. All this life, I cannot imagine if I lived in North Korea or in China. So I feel very blessed again, and I'm very happy to be an American. Thank you. American leadership to advance the freedom in the world is essential because keeping people alive in the world is the most important and valuable thing in this world, I believe. Because when people try to help other people, it's very difficult, and they also face challenges and difficulties. When I meet them, I always tell them this. Keeping a person alive is 10 times harder than you killing a person. So you are doing a good job, and keep going. Working together, Americans have the ability to change the world. Thank you.